So congratulations, we've made it through to the end of Module 1. Hopefully you're no worse for the wear. And now you need to show me what you can do. And this can either be difficult or hard, depending on how much of a challenge you want. At a very basic level, you need to kind of extend what we've already done with our Reddit API scraper. And that means that you need to, if you take a look, you'll see on Canvas, this list of this one happens to be in a notebook, but it's on Canvas as well. It tells you what you need to do to get the basics level badge, and that is you need to write a Python script that draws, basically extend the Python script we already have that draws from Reddit and writes it out to a CSV, and then you need to pass a quiz. In that quiz, it's going to ask you to share your notebook for the Reddit scraper. So what do you need to do to your Reddit scraper? If you've been following along, hopefully you have one that works reasonably well. Well, you need to make at least 3 changes to it. And I've listed some possibilities here, but really it's up to you how you might want to change it. So a very obvious basic one and requiring only a few characters of change would be to record it from somewhere other than rPhoenix, right? You could do that. You could choose a different subreddit. You might want to make the output so that it's prettier in terms of dates. Right now it outputs it in terms of the Unix epoch, that is second since 1970, and that's not very legible, and if you try to load it into Excel from there, it's going to kind of die on that, so you might want to fix that. You could limit which ones you're recording. Instead of recording everything, you could limit it to ones that are within a particular date range, for example. I do that for some of the projects I do because I want to know that I don't want to go too far back, or in some cases too far forward. Or if you were setting this up to run every 24 hours, you might want to do just the midnight to midnight of the previous day or something like that. So you could limit it using a branching and the if statement, and say, okay, if it's after this time, we'll record it, and if it's before this time, we'll record it. But if it's not in that window, then we won't add it to our list to kind of output into the CSV. You could exclude items that are very long or very short. You could exclude items that have bad words in them. You could only include items that are including keywords that you're looking for. So there's a whole bunch of things you could do. Make sure that you are not violating the rate restrictions, and so don't do anything crazy here in terms of downloading the whole of Reddit all in 5 minutes. That's bad news anyway. But you can kind of do some other things to get a larger chunk of stuff and then sift through it in some way. So any of those would count. You might, I don't have this on the list, but for example, I suggested that there was a section up there that was having trouble with names, and it was coming back on none on comments. We fixed it on comments, but we didn't fix it for the whole thing. You can make that little fix into your own defined function and then run that as a function instead, and then you could use it in both places quite easily. So there's a whole bunch of things you can do, and you have a lot of flexibility. You don't have to get overly creative. You could just kind of make, this is that whole iterative design thing. You can make a small step in the right direction. Once you do that, you need to go to share up here in the corner, up over my head here. If you hit share, you'll see yours will look a little bit different from mine because I'm using a different kind of thing, but you'll get link and you'll want to change this. Actually, right now it is changed to the correct thing, but you want to make sure that it says anyone with the link can view. There's a bunch of ways you could do this, but you make it so that anyone with the link can view. And then this one should be just viewer is fine. If you want to do commenter, you can, but viewer is fine. And then you need to copy the link because you're going to need that link later on. I would put it in, I don't know, don't write it down with a pen and paper, but copy it so that you have it for when you're ready to take the test, because you'll need to, one of the questions on the test will ask you for this link so that I can see it and make sure that what you've done kind of meets the requirements. Then you'll go ahead and take the other multiple choice questions in the quiz. They will look very familiar probably to some of the questions you had in the self quiz. So as long as you've been kind of keeping up with those self tests, this should not be too much of a challenge. Some of these may even be repeats from those self-tests. Some of them are new, but they're covering things that we've talked about in the video, so it should be pretty straightforward. There's 20 questions, so you need to get 17 of them right, which is a high bar, but if you don't make it, you can go back and retake it. Keep the deadline in in view, because if you want to get ahead of the deadlines, you need to make sure you're taking it in enough time that you can go back and revise if necessary. So make sure you get in time for the deadlines if you're trying to keep on track for the course. Once you've taken this, again, this is not a very high standard. It's just saying you've managed to keep up with what we've been doing in the videos, basically. And that's fine. That may just be where you want to be, but especially because this is the very first step and it's going to get harder from here, you might actually want to try to do the more difficult version of the badge, which is the Essentials badge. These are both badges, so once you complete them, you'll get either the Basics badge or the Basics badge and the Essentials badge. So if you want to go for the Essentials badge, first you have to get the Basics badge. So you don't get to kind of choose not to do the easy stuff. And then you need to write a Python script. This is from scratch that pulls from a different platform than Reddit. So this is going to require a bit more from you to go out and find a good API that makes sense. There's lots of APIs out there. You could pull from Twitter. You could pull from Spotify. You could pull from you could write something that kind of monitors a Discord channel and pulls from that. So there's all kinds of things you could use as an API, and I don't want to limit you on that. And then you just need to make a very simple program that does what we've done with Reddit. That is, kind of pulls out some form of data and stores it. So it's not reinventing the wheel. A lot of the pieces that you've learned for the basics can be reapplied here. It's just kind of applying it in a new context. And then you need to do the same thing. You need to copy the link so you have it. And then you need to take another quiz, also 20 questions. However, these 20 questions are going to be substantially more challenging than the ones for the basics quiz. Most of them are going to come not from the videos, but from those resources and readings. So, we never talked about, well, I can't give you all of the various things, but there's a lot that we haven't talked about that are actually covered in those readings. I would focus on the Real Python readings and I think that's a lot of the questions come from those Real Python readings, which are in some depth. So, there's operators we didn't touch on. I will tell you, I don't think there's I can't tell you what there's not, but we didn't do the bitwise operators. I don't think there's questions on that, but there are some operators like the not equal to operator or is not operators. Or in operators. These are things we haven't really touched on. We will kind of encounter them as we go forward in the course, but they were in the resources and readings, which are pretty extensive. So if you want to go for this, I would strongly recommend, even if you feel like you're confident in Python at this point in some areas, or if you came to the course with some confidence there, I would recommend you go over those resources and make sure that you're kind of up to snuff so that you can kind of get through that test, which is a little bit more challenging. And then from there, you're done, and we get to move on to Module 2. And I look forward to seeing you there, where we're going to take the foundation we've established here and do a little bit more with how to deal with data in a way that makes sense for larger collections and making more than toy use of collecting that data. All right, thanks.